I have gone through periods in my journey with mental illness where I have felt completely alone. And by this, I mean feeling completely alone in the sense of having no one to lean on or to turn to for support, but also in the sense of just feeling like there's no one who understands what I'm going through or what I'm facing or what I'm struggling with at that time. There are probably a number of reasons why this is the case, but, starting with stigma. Mental illness is still a stigmatized thing that is not talked about as often and as much as it should be. And so it kind of makes sense that when you're grappling with a mental illness, you feel like you can't really turn to many other people in society for support with it because it's something that we're still not really comfortable talking about openly. Beyond that, a literal symptom of many different mental illnesses is withdrawal. And so it makes sense that you would pull away from relationships and supports in your life that would have helped you to feel less alone before your mental illness or without a mental illness. And then also just dealing with a mental illness and having to navigate managing it can make it more difficult to prioritize relationships with other people and nurturing those relationships that make you feel less alone. So due to the stigma, but also just due to the nature of mental illness, it can really make you feel like no one understands what you're going through and you're all alone in the experience. I know that is definitely how I felt at different periods throughout my illness, where I have felt like I just can't connect with other people and I am lacking that sense of connection and belonging and understanding from the people around me. And it's a really isolating and lonely thing to experience. I think something that's maybe surprising to some people who are supporting someone who's living with a mental illness, and even surprising to some people who are living with a mental illness and trying to figure out why they're feeling so lonely, is that sometimes you can have a lot of supportive people in your life and you can have, close relationships in your life, but still be feeling that deep sense of loneliness and isolation. And I think that this largely has to do with people not really having the tools at their disposal to know how to effectively support someone who's struggling with mental illness. I'm so grateful for people in my life who have offered support during my difficult periods, but sometimes when they don't really know or can empathize fully with what I'm going through, they don't know how to effectively support me. And that's okay, it's difficult to have all the answers, but addressing that and understanding that there's learning that needs to happen between each other before adequate support can be given is probably an important thing to understand. I think that a lot of times people will say, I'm here if you need anything, or I'm here to support you. You can talk to me about anything. These kind of common gestures of support that are really well-intentioned and are, good to offer, kind of leave the person that you're offering to them not really sure how to accept that. There's some sort of breakdown in communication happening between the offer of support and the support that's actually needed and can be received. When I first became more open with the people in my life about my mental illness, it was largely met with a desire for understanding and desire to offer support, and people saying, I'm here if you ever need anything, or these kinds of things. And while I deeply, deeply appreciated this, and it meant the world to know that these people loved and cared about me, it still was a bit of an isolating experience because I knew that these people who were offering support still didn't really understand what I was going through, and they didn't really know exactly, how to offer me support. And so while it felt wonderful to know that they loved and cared for me, it was still an isolating and kind of lonely experience, still feeling alone in navigating my mental illness. And beyond this, sometimes a lot of people just find themselves in a situation where they don't even have any close relationships. I feel like society is kind of being structured in a way these days where we just have fewer close relationships. And, going through a global pandemic really altered the way we relate to people as well. And I think negatively impacted our connections and our relationships. And so literally just not having close relationships can also be a reason why it feels lonely navigating your mental illness, because maybe you don't have anyone to talk to about it or to empathize with what you're experiencing. So to sum up all that, it can be a really lonely experience, whether you have people in your life or not. And I think it's just kind of, unfortunately, a universal byproduct of living with a mental illness. So what I really want to talk about in this video is, what to do about this. How do you combat this feeling of loneliness and isolation when living with a mental illness? So something that was really, really helpful for me was attending peer support groups and, peer support groups for specifically my illness and people who could really understand and relate to the things that I'm going through. It was tremendously impactful and beneficial to hear from other people sharing about, difficulties that they're having or challenges or just experiences that they're having pertaining to their mental illness that I could relate to. And all of a sudden it felt like, wow, I'm not the only one who feels that way sometimes or who has experienced life or a symptom or whatever in that way. And that was really connecting and powerful to know that I'm literally not alone in experiencing these things and being able to be vulnerable and share with other people about things that I thought I was the only one struggling with and having them say, yeah, me too. And that was really, really, really powerful. And, something else that going to these peer support groups taught me was how to better articulate what my experience is. And, going to therapy as well has also helped me to understand how to articulate what my experiences are and what I'm struggling with and how to verbally convey that to someone else, which has really impacted my ability to offer a glimpse into what I'm experiencing to the people in my life who want to give me support or to people who I want to open up to and create more connection with. Learning how to talk about these things has also helped me to be more comfortable with and just kind of have less shame around the things that I'm experiencing and struggling with. I think that a lot of times with mental illness, we get cornered into this position of just being really shameful of what we're struggling with and not really wanting to talk about it with other people, but, pushing through that and getting more comfortable with it yourself so that you can be more comfortable sharing with other people is really beneficial in terms of creating connection. The next kind of tip is a really hard one, actually, and it's figuring out what kind of support you need and what kind of support would feel good to you so that you can then convey that to people who are offering support but might not necessarily know how to do so, like what I was talking about earlier in the video. So for me, this has looked, for example, one time like asking a friend to come over and just sit in silence with me. And, maybe we can talk about something that we're struggling with if it comes up or if we feel the need to, but just being comfortable sitting in kind of my depression with me. Or there have been times where I've asked my partner if I can just talk without them responding or anything, just talk about some delusions that I'm experiencing. And being able to just openly share in that way without having any sort of response and just knowing that he was listening and trying to understand was something that was really beneficial to me. Or it could be something as simple as, could you help me cook dinner? Or could you help me do my dishes? Or some kind of task that you're struggling with as a result of your mental illness. Whatever it may be, figure out what would be actually helpful and an act of care and compassion and empathy from your loved one for you. And then communicate that with them. Because I think, like I was saying before, so often our loved ones want to offer support and they want to be there for us, but they just don't necessarily know how or how to be effective in that offering of support. And so if we can do some reflective work on what would feel good for me, what do I need from this person? And then articulating that, being brave enough to articulate that to your loved one will probably go a long way in terms of creating a better connection and effective support. And to kind of take this one a step further, you could even try setting an example for your loved ones about how to offer this support that the other person actually needs. And so starting conversations about how you can support them in a way that feels good for them and in the most effective way for them, and kind of trying to create that reciprocal relationship, which really ultimately strengthens connection and understanding and empathy. I think at many points throughout my life, I have been met with this divide between my experience and people in my life who I know care about me, but I just feel isolated from. And I feel isolated from other people in the world who maybe I don't even have a relationship with. And this can be really debilitating and depressing to face. And I think so often it feels easier to just ignore it and to just be like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing this on my own. But I think that that is doing yourself a huge disservice. As people, we are social beings, and that is a really big component of maintaining our well-being, is having that connection and support from other people and giving support to other people as well, and just having that connection with other people. And so I would really, really encourage you to take some of the steps I've talked about in this video, take steps to work on building that connection and work on figuring out how to make the offering and acceptance of support, that dynamic, a more effective one, and one that kind of feels better for you and for the other person. Because loneliness sucks, and loneliness is draining, and loneliness leads to despair and feeling like there's no hope. And I want to convey that that doesn't need to be the case. Work on connecting with other people. There are definitely other people in the world who have gone through similar experiences to what you're going through, have struggled with similar things to what you're struggling with, and you're not alone in that. And the more that we can form these effective, supportive connections, the better we're going to be able to take care of our mental health and manage mental illness. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that if you take anything away from this video, it is that you are not alone in your struggles with your mental illness. And your mental illness is going to want to make you believe that you are alone in the struggles and that no one really understands and no one cares about what you're going through, but that is not the case. There are people out there who have been through similar things and can understand and empathize with what you're going through. And beyond that, there are people in your life who want to support you and connect with you. And so I really encourage you, if you don't have a lot of close relationships, get yourself out there, form new relationships, form new connections. If you have people in your life who you're not really sure how to connect with, try doing some of the things I talked about in this video in order to better, create these supportive connections with them and empathic relationships. It's really worth it to be able to connect with people in your life and to feel less alone ultimately in your journey with mental illness. And I wish you all the best in being vulnerable and being brave in terms of making these connections. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, wishing you and your loved ones good health. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.